Hello, thanks for checking out the channel. In today's video I'm going to be installing two wireless thermostats. I've got one that is just a standard non-smart ESI thermostat and another one where we're going to be going into a new build and installing a Nest thermostat. So we're going to be upgrading part of the system to a Nest. I believe it's actually two zones, but upstairs they want to keep on standard thermostat and then downstairs I'm going to be wiring in the Nest, so it should be okay, but it might be a little bit tricky given that it's a new build and you never know what you're going to find. So anyway, I'm going to head to the first job. So this job was a bit of an emergency before Christmas. They had no heating, found out that the wireless thermostat receiver was broken, so I didn't have time to repair it, and I just linked out the sort of like common to the switch live, so they could just turn the heating on and off, but without the control of the thermostat. So in all honesty, I almost forgot about the job, so I'm just heading there today to get that swapped out. So we've got a real basic ESI stack going in, but a really good ESI, a bit like the EPH controllers if you've ever installed any of those. So fairly budget, but does the job. So yeah, let's get over there. Okay, so we're at the first job then. As you can see, we've got an alpha heat only boiler on the left and all our wiring is there on the right. Now originally they had this Salus wireless programmable room thermostat, quite problematic. I'm pretty sure they don't make these anymore, and the receiver for it is down here. So unusually they've got a programmable timer, so dual channel timer where you can set the central heating times and the hot water times, but also you could change the times on the room stat itself. So we don't need to do that. We're just gonna update it with just a standard wireless room thermostat. So let's get this receiver out and take a look at the wiring. Right, that's the receiver removed from the wall. Now, unusually, the wires go directly into the receiver itself, not like a back plate. So although this is wall mounted, the cables go directly into the programmer. So it was always a little bit more awkward to install. Now, you can see there I've got that Wago connection in. Now that was just to link the common to the switch live, just so they could have central heating in the meantime, as I didn't have a new room stat on me. So yeah, let's get this disconnected, and then I just need to re-identify which one's the switch live and which one's the common. Okay, so this is the new ESI backplate, a bit more familiar to what we're used to. We've got the neutral and live on the left, and then our common and our switch live on the right. So I must admit I forgot which was which, so I've had to open up the wiring centre and just identify it by going back to the zone valve. So we've actually got a 3-port here, so I was just looking for the white wire for the central heating on. So I've identified that, got them in the right places now. So I'm just gonna put the faceplate back on, power it up, and then I'm gonna manually test it by pushing the buttons on the faceplate just to make sure it actually works okay, and then I'll connect it up to the wireless stat. Did anyone spot the mistake I just made? Because I've just put the switch live in the wrong terminal. so it's coming on when it's supposed to be off, and vice versa. So I'll put it in 3, not 2. Okay, so I've got it powered up now and hopefully wired in the right way. So what I've done is I've turned the central heating on the main programmer, and now I'm just going to engage the manual override just to test the wiring, check the receiver's actually working okay in terms of switching on and off. So what I need to do is I need to push the manual button on the right hand side, which lights up green. Then after a couple of seconds I just need to push the MA button. So I'm not sure if you can hear or see that, but the boiler is now firing up, the 3-port valve's engaged, and it's starting to operate. So that kind of proves that my wiring is now all okay, and now I just need to connect up the room thermostat. So the thermostat is battery operated. It should come paired automatically, so as soon as you put the batteries in it should work. So I'll just chuck the batteries in. Right, I've just put the batteries inside the room thermostat. this is it here. So it's just double AA batteries on the back of this. It doesn't actually come with a stand, this one, so it is wall mounted. I'm not sure if you can buy that as an accessory, but I'll try and find out. So I've just had to change the dip switches on the back to change it to Celsius rather than Fahrenheit. Now what should happen is it should be paired automatically. So as I turn this above 19, which is our current room temperature, that should engage that red light on the receiver, which it has done, and now the boiler should fire up. So if I just turn this off or turn it down below current room temperature off camera, you should see that red light switch back off again. There you go, and that's just shut the boiler off. So it's really responsive actually. Let me just spin it back on again. There you go. So straight away, it might be because I'm standing right next to it, but it seems to react really quickly. So the customer can now just set the times up simply on the main programmable dual channel timer and put this room thermostat in the correct location. Okay, so I'm gonna have to be a bit quiet on this one as the customer is on a Skype call. So I'm in a new build. It's got an Ideal system boiler, and like most new builds, it's got zone valves to separate the heating. So really oddly, it's only got one zone for one bedroom in the ensuite and the master bedroom. The rest is all controlled off of the main heating zone, which is there. So I'm not sure why it's not split by floors, but the customer has purchased themselves a Nest Gen 3 thermostat. Apparently it's been sitting there for a couple of years now, so we're just going to try and upgrade the main heating control, so this zone here, to the Nest thermostat. The bed and the ensuite is just going to stay on the same Thermostat. So problem with new builds is a lot of the electrics are quite poor, so there's no actual heating wiring centre. We've just got a faceplate with loads of cables chucked into a junction box. Now they have at least clearly indicated which cables which, so in terms of live, neutral and earth, so at least they're colour coordinated. So first thing I need to do is work out which cables in this terminal block are related to this heating zone valve. So I'm going to use my voltmeter, turn the stat on downstairs for the main central heating control, and just work out which is which, and then from that point we can work out where our cables need to go into the Nest receiver. Okay, so the power's all off, and the cable that I'm going to be disconnecting first is this one here. So this is our switch live from our room thermostat, and then our central heating onto our zone valve. So this black cable here, if I can get it out, must have done that one as well, which would make sense. Okay, so this black one here is the switch live from the thermostat, and then this brown wire here is our central heating onto that zone valve. Okay, so that's them disconnected. The main thing we need to figure out really is the common to our room thermostat also, because we need to reuse the cables to power up our Nest. So because we've got 5 cables going into here, we must have one main live coming in that powers both of our zone valves, and then I'm pretty sure these 2 brown cables here are going to be the ones that are powering up our thermostat. So essentially that's the common to our thermostat. So I need to identify which is which I'm going to link the cables together down by the thermostat I'm disconnecting, and then do a continuity check up here to work out which one's which. Okay, this is the thermostat that we're going to be replacing. It's on the ground floor and it's the one that controls the majority of the heating. So to identify the right cables upstairs where the wiring centre is, I've just linked these 2 cables together. So what that'll do is that'll create continuity, and then I can disconnect the brown cables from that terminal of lives, and then I'll be able to identify which is which. So let's head upstairs and check that. Right, so I have just double checked that this is not all live. Now, sounds a bit stupid, but you can kind of tell which cable this will most likely be because of the colour of the cable downstairs. Now, you like to think there's no other junction boxes buried in the wall at this stage, so that doesn't guarantee that is correct, but it's going to be one of these 2 browns here. The other one's darker, and I imagine that is the live feed in just looking at the type of cable it is as well. So if I undo this, like that, and then if I try and just pull one out for now. Okay, so this should be our live down to our thermostat. Now, the way we're going to check that is by putting them up like so, and then getting my voltmeter and checking for continuity. So we do that just by putting the probes on the end. There you go, you can see that there's continuity there. So that first cable I've pulled out, that is actually the correct one. Just to prove that, if I just pull out that second cable, so that should be for the upstairs thermostat. So let's loosen that off just to show you that. So if I pull that one out, do the same check, we don't have continuity. Okay, so I need to put that one back in, and we identified the right cable first time round, so 50-50 chance. Right, so I've got the receiver on the wall now, and Nest actually give you some screws which you can screw straight into plasterboard, which work quite well, to be honest, so they're pretty good. Okay, so I've got my cables into position now. I am going to be running the Nest off the 12 volt supply from the Nest receiver. So the first cables I've got here, on the right hand side you've got something called T1 and T2. Now what that does is that actually powers up the Nest thermostat itself. So those two cables that I identified downstairs as the common and switch live, they're actually now going to be my 12 volt supply to the Nest thermostat. Now the Nest thermostat, although the signal it sends is wireless to turn the central heating on and off, it actually does need a power supply to run it. So technically I wouldn't say it is wireless, so Nest is a little bit cheeky with its advertising. So these cables are no longer going to send the switch live signal, they're actually just going to be powering it up. So what I've done is I've got my cables in position here. Now this isn't a wiring centre, I am pretty much just chucking these cables into the corner here to get them connected. So the cables that I've got for T1, T2 are these black and brown cables here. So I'm literally just going to Wago them together to the supply downstairs, and that will be the 12 volt supply done. Okay, so now I've got my 12 volt connected. I've got this one spare cable left here in this funny wiring centre. So that one there is the central heating on to the zone valve. So I need to identify my central heating on the receiver, which is number 3. And that is the black cable here. So this black cable I'm going to join together back into that junction box, and that's going to power up the central heating zone valve when it's calling for demand. Okay, so now all we've got left is our live, our neutral, our earth, and also our common. So our common is actually just going straight into our permanent live. So we need to put these two back into our permanent lives here. So that's the permanent lives, that goes to our other room thermostat. The grey's on the zone valve, and obviously the other one is the supply. And then just our neutral and earth, and then that should be us wired up. Okay, so that's our Nest bracket on the wall. You can see there's a little level on the bottom there just to help you get that installed correctly. Now the T1 and T2 connections are actually quite small. They're located here and here, so I've just got those in the right terminals. I'll be honest, I'm not sure if they need to be the right way around, but yeah, they're in location, and we have recycled the old switch live and common cable, so unfortunately this stat's a bit smaller, so I've covered up the hole on the right, but I can't obviously cover up the hole on the left, so they've got a little bit of making good. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to put the face of the nest on just yet. I'm going to power it all up, and then like I did on the last job, I'm going to manually turn on the nest, just make sure it's all wired in okay, and then I'll put the nest in location. Okay, when you first power on the nest, you're going to get this little LED that flashes at the top there. So before I actually plug the thermostat in to the back plate, I just want to manually test it to make sure I've wired it in correctly. So when you push this button here, this green light should come on, and that's your manual override, and then only this zone valve should come on, so which is indicated by the lever on the bottom going loose, and obviously the boiler firing up. So yeah, it seems to be coming on, which is great. So now that has manually worked, I'm okay to put the Nest thermostat into position, go through all the settings, and then I can leave that with the customer to set up all their scheduling. Okay, the stat is all connected up now, and I've just gone through all the parameters and the setting with the customer. So the main thing you need to kind of understand is when it's black, that's pretty much off, so you've reached room temperature, and then as I adjust it and move it up past the room temperature, it turns orange, and then we'll bring the heating on and off. So this one's in white, looks really nice. First one I fitted in white, so yeah, might get one in my house. Okay, so on to the next job then. So I'm just doing a boiler service on this Ideal Vogue. I actually installed it probably about 8 years ago now, I think. So I've had good feedback from the customer about this boiler. Now, I used to install Ideal boilers all the time, so when I first went self-employed, I was a big Valent fan, installed plenty of Valents, but then nearly every time I installed one, I had to get a manufacturer's call because they broke down. So I got a little bit frustrated with that, moved over to Ideal, just because they offered like bit more of a budget-friendly option, especially with the logic. And someone's been playing around with that case. I've just noticed the case isn't even on, which is not great. It's not a great start. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, so I moved over to Ideal, and then 1 year I fitted 48 Ideal boilers, and then Ideal were doing a giveaway at the time where, or not a giveaway, like a reward scheme, where if you installed 50 boilers, that was my target, they were going to take me on a trip to Miami and give me a whale of a time. Unfortunately, I only got 48, and they wouldn't take me, so I got annoyed with that. Even though rules are rules, and I should have just accepted the fact. If I'd installed 2 more, it would have been okay. But I had a bit of a whinge, and then I stopped fitting Ideal, and then since then I haven't really been loyal to any boiler manufacturer. I've just been installing whatever I kind of see fit, whichever's most suitable for the job. So anyway, but what I would say is the Ideal Vogue is by far one of my favourite boilers, still to this day. They're still brilliant. I never get any problems with them. Easy to service, which I'll show you in a minute. Easy to clean the condensed, stuff like that. Reliable, very easy to install, light, and also the user display on the front is brilliant. So what I'm going to do is get the power off, get this burner out, take a look at that. They're always fine, but you've got to check, you've got to clean inside. Yeah, and just carry out the standard safety checks. Right, now the boiler's all clean, so we can carry out our gas safety checks and combustion analyzer reading. So remember, this boiler is 7 years old. Now look how good the user display is on the boiler itself. So I just click onto menu. I can scroll all the way down to service mode, and then I can get my high and low reading. So minimum central heating rate, maximum central heating rate, and maximum domestic hot water rate. So let's do our maximum first. So I'll select that. You can see here it tells us our fan speeds, diverter valve position. There's so much information that you can access on this user display. At the time it was released, I felt like it really did stand out from all the other competitors that are on the market, and still today it's a brilliant boiler. Right, the other good thing is it's quite easy how to change that service interval timer. So I just scroll down to that via the menu, push select, and then I can boost it back to 365 days, set that, that's done. Then we're not going to get the interval timer come up on the screen. So like I say, you can see fault history, fault help, vent system, sensor readings, pump fan, valves, flow temperature, service mode, pump modulation, plot graphs, freeway valve mid position. So it's really easy to work on, diagnose and service. So yeah, Vogue, brilliant boiler.